I am tired as hell and I probably should not be recording, but I need to take a break from the long work day, which actually doesn't start for another 4 hours, but that's another story. Last time I was talking about not my bad hair, but that Einstein quote, the problems of humanity can't be solved at the same level of thinking that created them. And I was going to try and put some flow to this content. It's not going to last very long, but for now, at least, I'm going to try and put some flow to it. Then it's just going to be random and spontaneous. I was going to talk more about the limitations of thought, because that's, I think, where we ended off last time. And I don't really know what to say about that off the top of my head. I don't know, just communication is hard to start with. How about that? Like we have these concepts in our minds and we express to another person what we think or want, and the other person understands it within the framework of their own mind and their own experience and their own models. And I may use the word peace, for example, to say, oh, I really want peace in my life. And like to me, that could mean something totally different to the person that I'm talking to. Like it's kind of a vague and abstract word. To me, it might mean I want to, stop having fights with my partner. To the person I'm talking to, it might mean I want my neighborhood to be, or my neighbors to be, to leave me in peace, something like that. So that's one way in which sort of, language and thoughts can be like quite abstract and unclear and quite limited. Another is just sort of defining things is hard. Like there's so much in philosophy, obviously, about this, and so much of philosophy is about defining words. I should know a little bit about this, although I don't know much about it. But I know there's a sort of classic example of like, well, how do you define a dog? It's like a animal with 4 legs that barks, but then some dogs only have 3 legs. So then what do you change your definition of dog to? It's like an animal with 3 or 4 legs that barks. And it's like, well, I guess it could have 2 legs. There's a number of legs necessary to dictate that something is a dog. And then what if the dog has had vocal surgery recently and it can't bark anymore? Like, actually, just kind of defining words and concepts is a fiendishly difficult thing. So that's another way that words are limited. Like we're not sure what the words we say mean, and even when we do say them, we're sure what they mean, but the person we're talking to may take them to mean something completely different. So those are just two sort of big limitations in thought and language. And I think one of the most important ones, the most important one probably is, if you think about science and computers as well as sort of the extensions of thought, like of taking our rational capability and extending its power, and really taking it to a new level. Science and technology have given us amazing things. We're able to build houses that don't fall down. We're able to build bridges and sewers and cars and all this stuff out there in the world that is kind of amazing, and a lot of it is cool. Dentistry has come a long way, for example, and I'm extremely grateful for that. And electricity, like there's a lot of cool things about what thought has been able to give us. But all of that stuff, if you look at it, it is all external stuff in the world. Like it's made the external world better in some senses, like more convenient. We have better shelter, we have um, more reliable food. Like our survival is kind of taken care of, and obviously that's the primal thing. So in many respects, it's the thought has delivered so much for us, but it's all external stuff. And once you get your basic needs met in life, then it comes much more, like your experience of life becomes much more about your inner experience. Like, do I feel happy? Do I feel depressed? Do I feel joyful? Do I feel connected to my partner? Do I feel like I've got good friends around me? Do I feel some sense of meaning in my life? Do I feel inspired when I look at the stars or at a tree? Or do I feel a sense of freedom when I'm dancing with my partner or on my own? Or like all of these things are about your inner experience. And when you die, if you're lucky enough to lie on your deathbed and reflect back on your life, like it's all going to be about your inner experience. It's not going to be about at all like, oh, did I have a convenient, good security system on my home, or high quality Apple TV or whatever it might be. Like, what matters in your life is the stuff that's in your inner life. And so it's kind of perverse that we keep putting all of this focus and all of this attention on, science, technology, engineering, and math, thinking that that's going to, sort of engineer and science our way to a better world, when it's actually the inner world that matters more than that. And all of this amazing technology that we've developed, ultimately, it's still at the hands and at the mercy of humans. Like the atomic bomb is an amazing piece of technology, but somebody's hand still hangs above that red button deciding whether to push it or not. And so in all these cases of all this technology, it all comes back to the human being and the human operating the tools, the human creating the tools. And all of that stuff is nothing to do with thought. It's about our inner state. It's about our inner state of maturity and peace and sort of emotions. And, like if we are got our finger hovering over that red button and we are easily agitated person, heaven help us. Whereas if I'm a person who, is extremely balanced and thoughtful and unflappable, well, that's probably the type of person I would rather have with their hand hanging over that button. So all this to say, like thought deals with, I mean, it has the limitations of, ambiguity and lack of ability to communicate clearly, but also it doesn't address our inner world really, like our inner emotional states. And emotional states isn't quite the right word, and that's a separate video. But these are just some of the limitations of thought, and I think this last one is the most important. Thought creates the world around us. It creates science. It creates all these objects. It creates all this technology. But it leaves us feeling unfulfilled. It doesn't address our inner lives, which matter more than anything. So if we think that we're going to think our way to happiness, I mean, that was what the big sort of romantic dream of the Enlightenment was. Like, we discovered the scientific method and we see progress happening and we think, oh, thought is going to make us happy. And actually, it doesn't. Reason does not make us happy. Technology does not make us happy. It has a value, but if it exists independently of our own inner and our collective inner evolution, then it's hollow and meaningless. And I'm probably repeating myself, so I'm going to shut up and we'll talk more again next week. Thank you so much.